Hollywood area. Supposedly, authorities are seeking this person for a DUI, and you're watching right now on surface streets as they move at not too quick a pace. Seems to be slowing down there. We're going to assume LAPD Hollywood Division following right there. Now at Beacon Avenue in the Westlake area, so this is getting us closer to downtown Los Angeles. But these are always very dangerous, especially if you think the person behind the wheel might be impaired. In fact, you never know if they're under the influence of something, if perhaps they're not even aware that somebody's following them, if they're impaired by drugs or alcohol. But this all a concern for people who are on the streets at this hour, who are driving or even pedestrians. But they don't look to be going at too fast a rate at this point. We're now at 8th Street and Columbia Avenue, now moving over to Whitmer Street. Surface streets in this area, fortunately, are pretty wide, so that is beneficial. Now going around a car, looks to be slowing down through the intersection. Ooh, red light, being followed by that black and white with lights on, and we presume with sirens going, and now heading on James Wood Boulevard. So this will definitely take you into downtown LA. This is one of the ways you get into downtown Los Angeles, where you're going to hit all the traffic. This runs parallel to the freeway. And this person will have to make a decision about whether they're going to jump on that freeway. There you see it, black and whites in pursuit. Again, not looking to be going all that fast. 32 miles per hour we saw at one point right there. And there's always a decision about whether you continue to follow the person. We've seen how very dangerous these pursuits can be. Are you putting the general public at risk, or are you helping them? But right now, we watch as the black and whites proceed now on the 110 at the 4th Street exit in downtown Los Angeles. Appears to be getting off. All of these streets at this hour will have a fair amount of traffic on them. You know, many people live downtown Los Angeles. We don't have the nightlife like we did since COVID, but it's starting to come back. And so we'll try to get a better look at that vehicle, and all we're told is that it's a potential DUI suspect behind the wheel. So simply because of the traffic in downtown, that'll force you to go slower. Now being obstructed by that high rise right there. We're at Fig and 6th. But this is an area where people will go out, especially on a Thursday night, is a big night to do what they call the pub crawl. So let's watch as we see where now I'm able to count a couple of black and whites in pursuit. Now it's South Flower and Wilshire Boulevard in the heart of downtown Los Angeles, going just 12 miles per hour. So hopefully this slow rate of speed will certainly help to keep people safe. Picking up speed now, was at 60 at one point, now at 41. LAPD in pursuit as we go over those high-rise buildings. Of course, we know in downtown, lots of restaurants, rooftop bars, some people still living in downtown. So we have folks who live there. We're at 8th and Fig, which is actually a very busy intersection. So let's see, a little hard to, okay, a little hard, yes. So Dennis Zind, retired LAPD, former councilman, on the air with us. You're on the air live with Laura Diaz. Good to hear from you, Dennis. What can you tell us?
Always a pleasure at this exciting time. I'm at a restaurant. They're trying to get the TV tuned into the station right now.
Okay.
So I've
well, I can tell you this. They're at the 110 and the 9th exit, which if you got off on that exit, you'd be going towards crypto.com. So it's an area that's,
right,
you know, heavily traveled.
If there's an event at the venue, that would also add more congestion to the situation. I understand it's a DUI suspect?
Yes. DUI suspect. Okay. Actually, he wasn't going that fast for a while. He was actually down. Now he's getting up there, 70 miles per hour, 69 on the 110, headed south.
Okay, hold on. We're still trying to get this. They'll try to get
You spent so many years in law enforcement. How much of a danger is it to have a DUI suspect like this, them in pursuit, and people traveling on the freeway?
Very, very dangerous, extremely dangerous, because the innocent people have no idea what is occurring. And when the driver is driving that fast, erratic manner, you never know what's going to happen. So it's extremely dangerous. Not like he's in control, trying to escape, and the innocent people driving have no idea what's going on. So it's a big, big hazard, and DUI is a major problem, and it just creates a havoc in the community. And if this started in the valley and it went down to that area, with the different jurisdictions of LAPD, the primary unit would be where it initiated, and then other units along the way. There we go. I've got it right now.
So there would be several agencies right now communicating, right, Dennis?
Well, LAPD would be the primary, but then it's going to go into the freeway. The CHP would be notified. Oftentimes the CHP takes over. Depends on the circumstances. So what we find happening is, in this case, we've got an air unit overhead, so we can see the light from the air unit, and we see the suspect, and then we see the units following behind at a safe distance. At least what I find, that if you want to say that it's better on the freeway than on a surface street, you don't have pedestrians, you don't have cross traffic. So as far as the safety for the general public, it's a safer environment, since you don't have those other hazards, innocent people on bicycles, pedestrians, etc. But this individual, as we see continuing on that roadway, on the freeway, oftentimes the LAPD or the local jurisdiction will abandon, and then the CHP takes it over. And they're very aggressive in their pursuit techniques, much more aggressive than LAPD when it comes to getting the suspect stopped and into custody.
Well, he may be under the influence, but so far he seems to be managing the vehicle fairly well.
Well, he's staying within the boundaries of the lane. He's adjacent to the carpool lane, and he's staying with there. There's a bit weaving, as you can see, the bit weaving back and forth. It's not excessive, but you can see there's weaving. But obviously, he's aware that he's being followed, or otherwise you pull over and stop. So it depends on how intoxicated the individual is, or there could be intoxication with another crime that the individual is wanted for. So you really don't know until you make the final apprehension, but it starts off as a DUI, and it could turn down to something much more serious with that. And why is he fleeing? If a DUI oftentimes pulls over and they go through the field sobriety test, etc. But in this particular case, they suspect DUI, but there may be other factors, especially as the length of this from the San Fernando Valley down to downtown area.
How long do you go until you make some kind of an aggressive move to try to bring this to closure?
Well, pit maneuvers have become very popular. In this particular case, you don't want to do a pit maneuver on a freeway. You'll go as long as they run out of gas. The units can then come in and take over on that pursuit. Jurisdictions take over. It depends on how long. We've had them from Los Angeles down to the Mexican border. So it just depends on the circumstances, what the individual's wanted for. But in this particular case, as we see the driving pattern, weaving in and out, passing cars. But I wouldn't say it's erratic. It's obviously a situation where now maybe rear-end a car because they're not in full capacity. But I see the primary right behind the individual, right behind the suspect, and then there's a backup. There are probably two or three that they normally have. And then the CHP would be joining, if they haven't already joined, joining the pursuit. And eventually the LAPD may release that to the California Patrol, and they'll take over the pursuit. And again, they're very aggressive in their pursuits, much more aggressive than LAPD when it comes to these types of situations.
Well, I just saw the sign, the exit there was Manchester, so he's headed south. And we always wonder if they're headed to an area they know best, because if you're going to have all these black and whites behind you, at least better know where you're going, right? So. Well,
right, but you're on the you'll end up in San Pedro, so we've got 3 black and whites. That's what the area they're showing now. I don't know exactly if there's anyone else behind that, but LAPD has a limited policy on how many engage in the pursuit. There'll be a supervisor who's monitoring, the watch commander's monitoring. I'm sure they're tuned into the TV right now watching exactly what's going on. And as it blacks out, then we wonder what's happening with it. There we go. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4. It's like there's 4 units involved in this, and there's 5 units involved in it. So where's the CHP if they're involved? maybe one of those vehicles. It's hard to tell from the view we're getting from the air unit.
Mm-hmm. And how much
But
of a help?
Go ahead.
How much of a help is that? Having that chopper above, shedding light, and just them working in concert from the ground to the air.
Well, the chopper is wonderful to keep visibility, but with the light that they have, that's illumination of the individual. And it's also a warning for other vehicles. And if the individual travels in other areas, the helicopter can maintain control over that. The units could get caught in traffic, but that air unit is an invaluable tool when it comes to this situation. LAPD has the largest law enforcement helicopter fleet in the country, and they use those frequently, and they get them on a pursuit as quickly as possible. So they're throughout the city. They don't have them within 5 or 10 minutes. So sometimes they have to travel distance with air speed. They can go a lot quicker than obviously on cars on the road. And they're a valuable tool when pursuits come around. And I know some people criticize the expense, but when you're following individuals, you want to maintain law and order, you need to have the air units. And it's just part of the arsenal that the law enforcement has to apprehend individuals and keep the community safe as they can.
I'm also hearing that perhaps the person at the wheel, that there's been some kind of communication between a potential gang affiliation with the Van Nuys, some officers out of that area. So how would that work? That they would maybe get a tip, and then all of a sudden you start the pursuit and the person's driving erratically. How is all this information transmitted, and how do you decide whether to act on it? Because we've been hearing a lot about how some of these chases are getting a little bit out of control, and people are saying, hey, should we back off a little bit?
Well, LAPD has a policy that you don't want to jeopardize the public. You want to back off. Oftentimes they do. Sometimes they'll terminate the pursuit because their driving gets too excessive. They'll maintain the air unit overhead. But number one is public safety. They want to apprehend this individual, but they don't want innocent people getting injured or hurt, killed in a collision. And we've seen that happen. So the question is, at what point do you do that? This is being monitored by the watch commander in the division, being monitored by field supervisors. And if it gets to that point, and I'm sure the watch commander's watching this as we're broadcasting, and they'll make a determination. They will say, let's terminate this pursuit. It's out of control. It's getting too serious. But they will follow at a safe distance, and that's the key. They want to apprehend this individual. Sometimes the individual, sometimes they goes into a parking structure and they disappear, and not every single one gets apprehended. They do want to apprehend, bring it to a stop to save the public from being injured, from the collision factor. And if they're a fleeing felon, they've committed some kind of a serious crime, you want to get them into custody and let the criminal justice system deal with it. So there's a lot of factors. People just don't flee because they ran a red light or they're speeding. Oftentimes there's other contributing factors that bring them to that, well, I have to get away. At all costs, I'm going to get away. And sometimes they result in collisions where innocent people are hit and killed. So you've got a lot of factors. A lot of things weigh on the pursuit, when you're going to continue, when you're going to terminate. But the tool that we have is that helicopter, which is an invaluable tool when it comes to following these people as long as you can, as far as you can.
We've certainly seen it when it's gone awry. He's now off the 110 at Florence, and so back on surface streets. And you were saying that this is more dangerous when he's on surface streets. And just what I'm seeing right now, I can see like 4 or 5 black and whites there at the scene.
Well, what happens on surface streets is maybe he may be stopped. I think he stopped. The view on the scene, he's stopped now. But the surface streets, you have so many other factors. You got pedestrians, you got people on bicycles, you have people walking, many hazards on the surface street that you don't have on the freeway. So a freeway pursuit is less hazard, less danger to the public than you're on a surface street, especially in the neighborhood as we see parked cars, people about. So that could create a major problem. But since it looks like that vehicle is stopped and there are a number of black and whites that are going to order the individual out of that SUV. So we'll see where that ends up. But apparently it came to a stop by the driver decided to stop in this particular area. Obviously, it's a heavily populated area.
Yes, and you know,
We'll
you
see
look
them
at
do-
this and you think the danger is subsiding, but in a lot of ways, this is where it's potentially the most dangerous because you do have parked cars there. There could be people around. They don't know exactly who is in that vehicle, if he's armed, if there are other people in there. From your vantage point and your years in law enforcement, how tenuous is it at this point in any chase?
Well, it's a lot of stress at this particular time. They want to safeguard the public. Number one, to safeguard the public, and number two, get this individual into custody. But they don't want innocent people to be injured. And with all the police cars and the lights and the sirens and the helicopter, people are going to come out of their homes. They'll be coming out and looking at what is going on. We don't want them to be part of the situation where they then become an innocent victim. If this individual comes out with a weapon, starts shooting, there's all types of possibilities. But where this particular pursuit has come to rest, the suspect's not in custody, but the hazard for the community is very, very present, and people need to be aware. They need to stay in their homes and watch it until it subsides. But with that massive amount of police cars and officers, and who knows if the individual comes out shooting, all kinds of scenarios take place. So the bottom line is get them into custody as quickly as can. And sometimes they have to bring on the K-9, sometimes they bring out the SWAT team. It all depends. But as we stand now, it's a standoff. The individual in the vehicle and the units that are surrounding.
They seem to be moving quickly now. We're seeing officers moving quickly. So they would likely be telling him to get out of the vehicle, put his arms up in the air, and get into a position where he is not dangerous, correct? If you were
Correct.
there, what would you think we'd be hearing?
Well, we would want to get them out of the vehicle. We want to make sure it's safe. We want to make sure the individual doesn't have a weapon. If he does have a weapon or she has a weapon, obviously, then it could be a situation of deadly force. So there's all types of possibilities, but the officers have to use extreme caution. Clearly, they have enough units there. Clearly, the individual is basically going to be blocked in. So I don't think the vehicle is going to go any place. It's just what happens with that driver when he decides, or he or she decides to exit the vehicle. If they cooperate, handcuffs get searched and go down to the police station to get booked. So we're in that mode right now where all those units are not available for calls. All those units that are there need to clear, but they can't clear until the suspect is apprehended. And they don't know what's inside that vehicle until they make that move where the individual decides it looks like he's trying to leave.
You think he's on the move again?
If I'm not mistaken, went down that road or that alley.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like if that's the same vehicle, it's hard to tell since it's night and the illumination is not very good, but it looks like, if I'm not mistaken, the individual, there it goes.
And it seemed like there was a black and white following him around that corner.
So there were a number of black and whites at the scene, and if he's on the run again, this will just continue in this residential neighborhood, which is a hazard to all those people living in that neighborhood. Again, we see pedestrians walking. This is very much of a hazardous situation for the people in that area. And now we see the black and whites.
Yes.
We don't see the red lights on. We don't see them in a code 3 mode. So it's questioning if they're backing off or what they're doing. This doesn't make much sense exactly what we're seeing now, because those units have, now we got one unit behind.
He seems to be moving. Can you see him there? There seems to be movement on the driver's side of the vehicle.
It looks like he's now stopping again. Looks like we just went around the block.
He's waving.
So there's officers that are on foot. Looks like maybe this is it. Maybe he's going to get out now. This is a very interesting pursuit. But all those cars followed around, and now he appears to be exiting the vehicle. So what they would probably do as quickly as possible, get some handcuffs on him and take him into custody. Because this is the standoff if he's out of the vehicle, and they may use some of the tools they have at their disposal to take him into custody, less lethal tools that they have at their disposal. Because we don't know who else is in that vehicle or if this individual is armed. That's the question. But the officers have to safeguard themselves, the neighborhood. But clearly they have enough officers there to make the approach and take them in. If they have a canine unit, the canine unit can also be deployed. So there's a lot of tools at their disposal. But since the vehicle is now stopped once again, the individual appears to be out of the vehicle. It seems to bring this to rest as quickly as possible. But it's been a long time since we've been going. And then we did the round the block through the alley and then stopped him again. And if nothing else, I'm sure they're going to block off that other end so he doesn't do this again. But they're all unpredictable. You never know what's going to happen. Sometimes they surrender very peacefully.
I believe he's exiting now. Can you see the red circle?
Finally, yes, yeah. And hopefully they'll be able to take him into custody. He should just cooperate, move towards the office, keep his hands visible, knowing if he has a weapon or not. And if he doesn't have a weapon and he puts the handcuffs on, they'll do a search. And we can do a code 4, and they can go back to normal patrol, because I'm sure the calls are stacking up where people are calling 911 for service and there's no units available to handle. That's what happens when the uniformed officers respond to these, and this number of officers, this number of black and whites. Those are all cars that are out there doing patrol, handling radio calls. So when they're not there, those radio calls are stacking up. It looks like we might be taking him. Well, he's still...
It's almost like he's talking to them as if he's negotiating.
Yeah. There's got to be some kind of conversation.
Yeah, which isn't really a bright idea, right, at this juncture.
Well, they want to talk him. They want to talk him out. They want to talk him into custody. That's what they want to do. If they want to bring him to custody, they can use a taser. There's other types of tools they have at their disposal. You know, the vehicle is stopped. We don't want to see it take off again. They want to get him into custody as quickly as possible. And while he's in and out of that vehicle, they may decide to swarm him. There's other techniques that they have. But the bottom line is they don't know who's in the vehicle besides this individual, and they do not know what type, if any, weapons this individual has. So, you know, remember, these officers want to go home to their families at night. They don't want to go and play John Wayne and get hurt or get shot. So there's a lot of factors, and I'm sure there's a supervisor there directing what they want the officers to do.
Now, from your vantage point, Dennis, can you tell if... Oh, he's now turning around. He had his hands up.
Okay, now it's going to...
They're apprehending them. They're...
There we go.
Yeah.
He went through a lot of play for what we're faced with now. Looks like a large stature individual, showing he has no weapons. Pull the shirt up, turn around, make sure there's no weapons in his waistband. So now they'll take him down and put the handcuffs on him, and now he's in custody. So you see the number of units there. Every single one of those units would be out there handling radio calls, every single unit. So all these people waiting for police response to a 911 call or whatever the case may be. The units, I think it's from the San Fernando Valley, they went on this long pursuit. So the primary unit will take over. All the other units will resume patrol. Back on the radio, the air unit will clear, and we'll get back to normalcy in this area. The vehicle will be impounded, and they'll run him through the system and see what he's wanted for. Then he'll get booked.
Well, fortunately, this went without a hitch. There were some harrowing moments there on the freeway as it wound its way through downtown Los Angeles, and now I think we're essentially in South LA area, maybe even further. All right, so Dennis Zine, we thank you so much for giving us context here, and all your years in law enforcement. We appreciate it, and thank you for your guidance.
My pleasure. Thank you. Good night.